Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northfield. My name is Sandra Griffin, and I am a great lover of animals, from large to small. UUFN is an inclusive community that nurtures spiritual and intellectual growth and fosters ethical and social responsibility. If you're a visitor, either online or on site, we're glad you're with us, and we invite you to stay after the service to get acquainted with us all. We welcome your questions and look forward to getting to know you. Later in the service today, we will take our Share the Plate offering as a way to care for the wider world. This month, we join our resources together to help children in Palestine through donations to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. This relief fund is the primary humanitarian organization in Palestine that we will direct our donations to the Gaza Relief Recovery Program, which provides emergency care for medical aid in their new field hospital in Rafah with nutrition, clean water, safe food for families and for children. They have trauma counseling as well. There will be instructions on the screen during the offertory for giving with cash, check, or electronically from our website, UUFN. No, it's just UUNnorthfield.org. Call your attention to the announcements in our worship folder this morning. Your order of service is in there, and there you'll find more information about what's coming up next week and further into the month on the back of your folder. Today, our annual meeting will be held after the service, and everyone is invited to attend, and members will be able to vote. Please join us next Sunday for Cultivating Discernment, or Just Do What Works, presented by Lisa Ebert. Again, welcome to you all to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northfield.
Taylor. Good morning, all. I am the Reverend Sarah Smalley, she, her pronouns, and I serve this congregation as its minister. This morning, I am very happy to welcome my friend and colleague, Reverend Terri, back to UUFN as our guest speaker. Terri is a Unitarian Universalist minister, community organizer, and creator. She was most recently with Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, which is when she spoke to us last summer, working at the intersection of climate justice and racial justice. She is a member of Unity Church Unitarian in St. Paul and is on the board of Moose Jaw, Minnesota Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Alliance. Terri lives in St. Paul with her spouse, 2 dogs, a wild garden, and quite a few sewing machines. Ask her about them. What her bio doesn't tell you is that Terri is smart, hilarious, insightful, and passionate about bringing more beauty, joy, and justice into this world. It is so good to have you here today, Terri. And because the universe is awesome, as Terri and I were talking about this worship service and planning it, she suggested these opening words, not knowing that I had just preached about dandelions last week during our flower ceremony Sunday. These words are a bridge from what has come before to all that is yet to be. From Adrienne Marie Brown. Dandelions don't know whether they are a weed or a brilliance, but each seed can create a field of dandelions. We are invited to be that prolific and to return fertility to the soil around us. We are invited to be as prolific as dandelions. Come, let us worship together.
The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Each Sunday when we gather, we bring this symbol to life together. Please join me in speaking the words for lighting the chalice. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. Please join us in the opening hymn. Please rise for number 65, Sweet June Days.
Each week when we gather, we bring our joys and sorrows to this community, that our sorrows may be carried with the support of others and our joys magnified. And so let us now move into our time of centering and connection. I invite you to allow yourself an unhurried breath, to arrive fully in this moment, and to rest in the embrace of a wider love. In the presence of this love that holds us all, we use our chalice flame to light our candles of community. We light our first candle for the wider world. We rejoice that Israeli forces rescued 4 hostages held by Hamas since October, and we grieve this raid in Gaza killed more than 200 people. We rejoice in Pride Month and all of the brilliant manifestations of love, and we grieve the violent attack on a transgender young woman at Hopkins High School in Minnetonka this week. May this flame help us to hold the full, complicated truth of this world with all of its grief and gratitude, its tenderness and its harshness. And may we always, day after day after day, amplify love. We know, too, that the details of our daily lives are sacred and important. We now light a candle for all of the simple joys that are hearts, but that have not been spoken out loud. And we now move into a time of shared silence, holding the truth of our lives and of the world in our hearts. Amen and blessed be.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Our reading today is a recording of a poem called Compost, performed by Redwood Ryder, a spoken word poet from New Zealand.
To make a good compost, you need mostly a source of carbon, woody biomass, a sprinkling of nitrogen, kitchen scraps, clippings of grass, or anything that fell out of an animal's ass, a diversity of materials to make it nutritionally rich, in the right ratios so it burns hot enough to kill twitch. Add a sprinkling of water, some straw to cover, and a deep appreciation for the Great Mother. To make a good compost, you've got to have a soul appreciation, that creation comes out of the breakdown of all that we thought we knew. To make a good compost, it helps if you're a warrior of love. It helps if you understand and track movements of planets spinning through constellations above. To make a good compost, it helps if you know how to dance. Well, that's not scientifically proven, but you might as well dance. To make a good compost, you gotta depend on what you can't see. Stand outside on freezing winter nights, shoveling the great, steaming mystery. Running up hills, gasping, panting with loss, sitting in the stairwell, sobbing in frustration, beating our drums, beating our chests, howling at the moon. For a while, it's all part of the pile. You've got to embrace giving, to go on living. For nothing would ever grow again if the cell wall of the wood bark refused to fall apart, refused to recombine. Nothing holds on as hard as our minds. To make a good compost, you gotta be willing to crack open. You gotta be willing to rearrange, even if people look at you strange. You gotta be willing to submit to the forces of nature and know that something dies, but something lives forever. You gotta be willing to wait and wait and wait. And willing to burn from within, knowing that you will break down, but you will rise and grow again. Till again, Holy One, you break down and break down, and again emerge in new form, sprouting tender and green from the ground.
We now gratefully give and
Make a
receive
good
our Share the Plate offering for the Palestine Relief Fund. The financial resources we share are a tangible sign we will not turn away from but rather reach out to a hurting world. Ushers, please come forward.
Good morning, everyone. I am so glad to be here with you again. So I am an enthusiastic gardener. I'm willing to dig up the front yard of my small St. Paul city lot, interrupting the expanses of grass squares that are the norm from block to block. Pollinator-friendly native plants and grasses, raised beds and containers for vegetables and herbs, blueberry bushes, a serviceberry tree, a mound of rhubarb, of course, this is Minnesota, all soaking up the bright south-facing sun of my front yard. In the backyard, underneath a tall quaking aspen tree, I have a mix of perennials, small bushes, big gray rocks, and a small but nice patch of grass for my dogs. I move plants readily, rehome or compost ruthlessly what does not work within my little ecosystem. I thank the friendly bugs, and truthfully, I curse the aphids, the Japanese beetles, and all of those other pests. Fellow gardeners, I think you get it, yes? I only have room for a fairly small compost bin that I bought for cheap from the county, along with a simple wire box to corral fall leaves. The bulk of my organic yard and food waste gets brought to one of the public compost sites. Luckily, I have one just a couple miles from my house. Composting is one of life's greatest renewal processes, and I just love the science of its regeneration. The recipe, as you heard from our spoken word poet, is quite simple. You combine nitrogen-rich green materials with carbon-rich browns, add some water, turn the pile for oxygen, and a slew of helpful bacteria and fungi get to work, breaking it all down into black gold. I mean, I know it's science and basic ecology, but I think there's some magic happening too. With the right balance of 3 parts brown to 1 part green, some water and some air, these simple ingredients support a miracle, really. Now, I realize that not everyone here or those online are gardeners. You might not even have a houseplant. That is okay, no judgment here. But I hope you can picture what I'm describing, this connection between decomposing and nourishment. 2 things that seem almost like opposites, but are actually necessary for the other, intertwined within themselves. Rumi wrote, "The ground's generosity takes in our compost and grows beauty. 2, to be more like the ground." To be like the ground is to have sources of sustenance and energy. It's to have worn out bits and debris, to have roots and grit. And let's be frank here, to be like the ground is to have shit too. Our opening hymn lifts up the sweetness of these June days, how the glow of summer air helps wing thoughts and happy moods of love and joy and prayer. What we sung is beautiful and true. And yet we know this is only part of the story. These warm days also bring mosquitoes and ticks, hail and tornadoes, and thoughts and mood filled sometimes with grief and anger and bitterness too. I mean, I know that we are not always happy and we are not always sad. And yes, we know that seasons come and go, that summer is not always 72 and pleasant, and winter is not always 30 degrees below zero and raw. We know this, duh, we know this. Why am I saying the obvious? Really, why am I saying the obvious? And yet, the funny thing is that when we are in the midst of big, hard feelings or loss, It's so easy to lose our way, so easy to forget this impermeable change and flow and movement. We can't find renewal. We can't even sometimes find rest. We get stuck or fixed or sunk into the muck of tough, stinky stuff. The Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh offers a perspective that I think helps. In No Mud, No Lotus, he writes, both suffering and happiness are of an organic nature, which means they are both transitory. They are always changing. The flower, when it wilts, becomes the compost. The compost can help grow a flower again. Happiness is also organic and impermanent by nature. It can become suffering, and suffering can become happiness again. When we remember that everything is always changing, when we can imagine the cycles of life and nature, of feelings and moods, we can create space to wonder and hold the possibilities of what can be within all of that muck. Because that mud and that lotus is part of us. They're both inherent within us and around us. They are fertilizer and history and the ground of our becoming. It is our connection to earth, our connection to self, and our connection to one another. How do we cultivate this in our lives? And Thich Nhat Hanh has another response in his teachings. He says and guides and advises us that when we wake up in the morning, the first thing to do is breathe and to become aware that you have 24 brand new hours to live. This is a gift of life. This, he says, is a gift of impermanence. Now, to be clear, I admit that awakening each day like this is a big aspiration for me, probably for you too. If you are enlightened, please come see me after the service. But for me and for you, probably, waking up with this kind of attention, this kind of greeting to 24 new, fresh hours is a big time aspiration. But sometimes I do indeed remind myself of this gift. I wake up and I walk through my gardens first thing while I'm still wearing my pajamas and a little bleary-eyed. I slip on a hoodie and my grubby pair of lime green Crocs, and I wander throughout the garden beds, front yard, out in public, and backyard too. I'm not gardening in this moment. I'm noticing. I'm using my eyes and my nose and the gentle caress of my fingertips as they brush gently across the foliage. I get so giddy when I see a new flower bud or a plant that somehow managed to survive the season, the storms, or the bunny rabbits. This spring, I planted strawberries for the first time, and I'm telling you, that first fruit I tasted was simply magnificent. I love the surprises of this morning tour. I'm grateful for what is alive and thriving, and my little ecosystem teaches me about the things that I can control and the many, 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 many things that I cannot. And in my best moments, I can bring this feeling to mind when I am mired in thoughts, emotions, or patterns that feel unmovable? What helps you be more like the ground? What fills you with that visceral sense of no mud, no lotus? These, I think, are the questions of our life. They are what bring us back over and over and over again to the gift of impermanence, of change, of connection. And it starts by pausing, by noticing, by breathing. So in a few moments, I'm going to invite you to participate in a simple ritual where we'll take a moment to check in with ourselves and use the literal act of composting as an opening for personal or communal renewal. When you arrived, you should have gotten a bit of torn newspaper and some sort of crayon or marker or writing utensil when you sat down. If not, our greeters will be happy to bring you one. Just flag them down. And for those of you who are online, go grab a random piece of junk mail or scrap of recyclable paper and something to write with. Just go right now. All right? I'm sorry I can't provide it for you, but I know you have something laying near you. All right? Anyone here need anything? Okay, there we go. So just hold tight for just a moment, because before we begin, I want to give space for us to settle into the possibilities of this ritual. And I have some opening lines from Wendell Berry's poem, A Purification. So just breathe and settle. At the start of spring, I open a trench in the ground. I put into it the winter's accumulation of paper, pages I do not want to read again, useless words, fragments, errors. And as I put into it the contents of the outhouse, light of the sun, growth of the ground, finished with one of their journeys, to the sky, to the wind, and to the faithful trees, I confess. So right now, in this moment, I invite you to write something that you may be holding on to. Whatever burden you may be carrying, whatever weed or bruise spot or expired item that you are getting ready to get rid of and transform, or perhaps you have a dream or an idea or a wish that you'd like to give time and space for it to heat up and see what might come forth. Don't think too hard, okay? Just put whatever down that comes most readily forward. And when you're done, I'm going to have a compost bin up here, and you're going to come forward and drop it in the pail. And if you need help, just raise your hand and one of the greeters can bring it forward for you. And for those of you online, you'll go drop it in your own recycling or compost bins. Okay? So take just a moment or two and write on your paper and then bring it forward. So as we bring this ritual to a close, I have some additional organic materials. These greens will mix with the browns as we bring our pile toward balance and get it ready to return to the earth. And I will be just tossing this in my compost bin at home. Remember, friends, to make a good compost, you've got to be willing to crack open, willing to break it down, willing to wait, willing to surrender, willing to burn from within, willing to have faith and emerge again. May it be so. Let us please rise in body or spirit as we sing together our closing hymn, number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning. Our closing words are from my friend and co-conspirator for justice, the Reverend Dana Newhouser. Let our anger turn the soil. Let the excrement of empire be composted to fertilizer. Let our tears of grief and joy water the seeds of justice, and let collective liberation be the fruit of our labor. Amen. We extinguish chalice now? Yes? Oh, right. So we join in the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please rise now in body or spirit, and with your hands over your heart, holding a hand of those next to you or whatever posture is most comfortable for you, We sing words of blessing one to another.
May the longtime sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure, pure light that's within you guide your way home. May the longtime sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure, pure light that's within you guide your way home.
Go in peace, but stay for the annual meeting.